Hey everyone, we are live on Facebook and I am joined by the dashing and good looking David Schwendiman. Hi David.
Hi.
So apologies we were a little bit late, but we had some wonderful issues with Skype, which is now ringing in the background, so I'm just going to close that over there. But we're now live, we're here.
Perfect.
And I'm really looking forward to this because David, I can't believe actually, I was just thinking about it, we've never done an interview together.
No, we never have.
You've managed to avoid me for many years.
That's right. Just wanted to wait till you were ready for my interview.
That's it. We went through everybody else first, got them all out of the way.
Right.
We covered Steve and Melissa and everyone else, and and now we've got literally the big guns.
Yes.
So I will introduce David. So David is a wonderful coach. I met David, and this is not from your bio. This is just this is my introduction for you. That I met you back in 2015 when we were both much earlier on in our professions. David was on the advanced client system, so the Steve's coaching school in the US, and I think it was the first weekend I was sitting in the room in Phoenix, Arizona at some point, and Steve Chandler said, "Look out for this guy. He's going to be the future Rich Litvin." And I always remembered that, so I kind of took a mental note. And thought, okay, this guy, there's something special about you. And I don't think it was the year after that, but maybe the last time I did ACS, we were roommates. We shared a room together, and which was not good for my self-esteem around my body. I was just starting to go to the gym, and then I'm with David, who is kind of a mini Hulk. So and
it wasn't good for your sleep either, as I remember.
No. I think
me as snoring like an angry bear.
Yes. Yes, I think I tried to blank that out. So. But despite that, no, it's been really cool to watch your growth as a coach. I know that first year you were Steve's apprentice, or was it the second year you were Steve's apprentice? And then you've bought a business, you've had back surgery, you've gone through a whole host of stuff in your personal life and professional life. I think a divorce is in the middle of all that, and yet you stayed coaching all this time. And growing that, and when we were throwing around ideas for an idea of a webinar, an idea of a conversation, I can't remember, I think you picked this one, the power of radical honesty in coaching, and I really liked it because the more I thought about it, I thought you're the best person to talk about that, because I mean, you're very funny, and I laugh always at your social media posts. But I think part of the thing that makes it so funny is real, like, radical honesty.
Right.
Like, you don't really hold anything back. And so I can imagine that you're definitely going to be bringing that into your coaching conversations.
Right. Try to. It's, that's the goal.
So tell me, why, and we've got a bunch of people here who are joining us. Hi, Stuart. Hi, Arthur. Promila, hi as well. So I'm sure people will be kind of jumping in, and we'll have a lot of people on the replay. So if I don't say hi now, just imagine a group hi. But feel free to send us some likes and whatever on hearts and whatever stuff on Facebook. But David, why did you pick this title, very specifically?
I picked it because as I've gone through my own evolution as a coach and learned to coach and do all that, I think we all most of us start with kind of a technique. I definitely did. Like, I'm going to coach according to some parameters, and I'm going to have my clients follow this system, or I'm going to coach according to, I remember I downloaded Rich's 106 kick-ass coaching questions, and I would have that up on my screen or printed out when I was talking to somebody for a long time. And the more I've coached, the more that I move into this way of just being absolutely honest with people at a level that usually scares me and can be uncomfortable for the client. Like, that took my coaching and the results my people were getting just out of this world. So I was thinking, if there's one thing I could share, we talked about that, if there's one thing I could share with a coach, this would be it. I think it's one of the hardest things to really get your head around and get a hold of and really apply. At least for me, it's been really a difficult process to do it. But now that I'm there, just partially there, I've got a long ways to go. But now that I'm able to bring it more often, it just blows me away how powerful it is in coaching, whether it's enrollment or an existing client, helping them get where they want to be, or re-enrollment. Like, there's nowhere that there's not a place that I apply this that it's not really effective for my business and for the people I'm working with. So I thought this would be the thing. This would be the one thing, if I could get something across, I would want to.
I love this, because I remember it was about a year into my first year of coaching with Steve Chandler, and I can't remember exactly how he said it or what he said, but we were talking about my coaching, and I was maybe sharing some conversations I was having with people, and he was just simply saying that I needed to be more direct and more honest and
right.
and not hold back. And I know for me this was a challenge at the time, because it went against socially,
Yes.
how I am. It went against maybe the British culture. We're very not as direct,
Right.
and there was also a personal thing around like wanting to be liked and having to let go of that. And it was a bit edgy at first, but as I got in there, not just to well, I'd love to hear what you think, because one of the things I struggled with over the years, and it's been a refinement, is a balance, because what we're not talking about, or I'd love to hear, maybe you are, but it's not about just saying anything without a filter, without any regard for someone's feelings.
Right.
But I think what you mean by radical honesty, or certainly what I've had a challenge to learn, is about saying what I think without getting the other person's ego, up, because that doesn't help them. It's doing it from a place of service. So so I guess the question I've got is, did you go through an evolution, and what did that look like for you?
Yeah, well, the evolution was at first not saying anything that I would see. So I found that in coaching conversations, I'd get these little pings of stuff that didn't seem right from the way the client was describing something, or their view of the world being off from kind of how I saw in terms of what was possible, or a situation seeing it differently. And what I would do is I would try to get on my client's side and work with them on the problem. But the issue there was that it didn't feel challenging to them. It felt like we were doing good work, but we had both kind of agreed to not talk about something important, which I found happening. It was like the client would have this view that the boss was, my boss is just unreasonable and coming down on me. And so I would then work with my client on how to deal with this unreasonable boss, rather than looking at, is that really the case? Or are we misinterpreting something? Are we showing up in a way that's eliciting this response? I wouldn't stay neutral to be able to see the whole situation and help the client with whatever was going on. I would try to go with them. And the way I describe it now is that people tend to build these little jail cells for themselves. They build up walls of belief and then they crawl inside of it, and then they live in this little box that limits them in a lot of ways, but is also very safe. It makes the world make sense. And part of my job as a coach is to stand outside of that and point out the things that I see. Like, oh, look where you're limiting yourself there. Look what you've built this up to make this person wrong, so you don't have to look at your role in the situation. But rather than doing that, I'd crawl in the box with them, and kind of like getting in a fort with a little kid, and then being like, all right, now how do we get out of here? Which isn't helpful. Not as strong as me coming from the outside. And the tough part in coaching was clients loved it when I would take on their worldview and I would take on their beliefs, and I would sit with them in that place, because it wasn't challenging at all. So I had a lot of people who liked me, but I was definitely struggling to get results. And when it comes to something like enrolling new clients and making money in this business, people liking me didn't translate to them paying me. And so it started there, and then I started playing this service game, which we don't need to go into. There's information on that online, but with Melissa and Gary playing this game, and that my big challenge in the game was to start calling out some of that stuff that I was seeing, even if it was wrong, even if the client got offended, even if it was way off base and kind of embarrassing to do. So I kind of edged into it that way. And then this last level has been just in the last couple months, just really stepping that up, really ramping up that honesty for the people that are around me. And I found it was based on little seeds I had inside of me where I was able to see where I'd done it before and how profound it was, but I hadn't ever been intentional about bringing it in at that level for everybody I work with. And since that's happened, it's been a huge shift.
So some people, when they first find out that, I'm a coach, or when anyone in this group, oh, you're a coach, some people, at least in UK, in the UK and in Europe, they'll say, well, what, people pay you just to talk to you, why can't your friends do that? And I think what we're talking about here is a real distinction between a social conversation and a professional coaching conversation.
Yeah. Yep. Because I'm going to say the things that your friends would never say, because you wouldn't be friends afterwards. Right. Like I get to, as a coach, it's my job to step in outside of that relationship.
So can you give us an example of some of the things that you might have said when you were going through that transition, where initially you might have held back, and then you went a little bit deeper, a little bit more honest, a little bit less social?
Right. So I think my favorite way to apply, or it's coming up for me right now, is 2 enrollment conversations I had with 2 different people. One of them is actually flying out tomorrow to meet with me, and we're going to do an intensive here. But that person became a client after we'd had an intake call. And at the end of it, I saw that I'd kind of held back. I'd given her some tools, I'd given her information, I'd done all the things I normally would do. And then I was going to let her go out in the world and just live and experience what we'd worked on. And the hope was, if it all went well and she enjoyed what we'd done, that she would come back around. What I hadn't seen, or hadn't said, but I'd seen it, was that without a real professional coaching relationship, everything I gave her wasn't going to get her where she wanted to go. It wasn't going to be enough. Just the tools and the information weren't enough to help this person get to what she was trying to achieve. And so when I saw that, I went, shit, I got to go back. I got to say this. I got to go tell her. And so I asked if she could hop on another call. And she said, yeah. We got on a call the next day. I didn't tell her what it was about. And we got on, and I said, listen, here's the deal. Like, you're doing amazing. We've had some really good conversations, but everything I've seen in you and everything we've talked about is still not enough to get you what you want. And if you don't come on and you don't start working with me or some other coach like me in a professional container where we've created this and set the boundaries and set the agreements and done all of that, if you don't have that in your life, it's either not going to work or it's going to take a hell of a lot longer to get where you want to be. So the options are you keep going and doing what you're doing. No hard feelings on my end. That's great. Take everything we talked about, apply it, or come be my client, and we're going to make all of this happen a lot faster and with a lot less bumps in the road. And she said, cool, I'm in. And then she signed on, which if I hadn't have done that, I don't know that she would have been a client. Or if it had happened, it might have been months or years down the road before she was ready for it. So that level of honesty is what was needed.
I love that, and I'm reminded of so many examples of, at least initially, where I'd kind of lean into my edge. I would say things. I'm like, oh man, I feel really uncomfortable saying this, and like your client did there, I'm in. People would love it, and I've had clients where, they were like, thank you so much. I was nervous before the conversation, and they'd be like, thank you so much for calling me out on that. And it was really, the opposite of what I thought it would be. And it took a little bit of time to get around that. Totally.
That's exactly it. Because the fear is, me going into this call, the fear is that she's going to think I've positioned everything just to sell her, that I'm going to be way off with what I'm saying. And she's going to tell me, no, I'm good. And I didn't need coaching. Everything you gave me is what I needed. And how dare you? There's so many things that can run through my head. And so it's a commitment to saying what I see as true, above me being liked or having something work out. And it's putting that honesty above everything else is what I have to do. That's the real work. and I'm off. Sometimes I'm wrong. Sometimes I'm super wrong. I bring in this radical, like this hardcore honesty, and it lands not at all because it's so far off base from what the client's reality is, and I have to be okay with that.
I was just about to ask you, have you had times when you've gone in and this isn't a tool, right? This isn't a do this radical honesty thing in order to
Yes.
grow your business or to get clients or to be more impactful. This is, I'm guessing, a willingness to be wrong, and sometimes you will get it wrong.
Yeah. Do you want to hear about me getting it wrong?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I just had that, I think, a week or two ago. There was a guy that I'd been speaking with. We'd been messaging back and forth and had one or two calls. And then I went to visit my coach, Gary Mahler, for an intensive. And Gary and I were making a list of clients that I thought I wanted to work with in the coming year. And this person's name was on that list. And I showed Gary the name as we were talking through. And Gary says, I recognize that name. And he opens up his Facebook Messenger. And this guy that I'd been talking with had also been messaging Gary and had a call with him. And I went, oh, it's one of these guys that's just kind of like just shopping around, seeing how much free coaching they can get from different people. And he was reaching out to some high-end coaches, but what I recognized there was I went, oh no, this guy's confused. He's newer in his practice and he thinks he can save money on coaching by getting a bunch of free intake calls from a number of different coaches. But really that's going to set him way back, because I saw what I saw happening there is either he's going to talk to a lot of different people, get a lot of ideas, think that he has what he needs. He's got a full-time job now. He's going to leave his job to go coach and then fall on his face because having a bunch of ideas from 10 different coaches does not in itself constitute being coached. And so I really saw a risk that he was setting himself up for failure by trying to do this shopping around of the coaches. And so I saw it. And that's what was true for me, was this is what was happening. And so I got back home and I messaged him and I said, hey, I saw something when I was traveling in our relationship. Is it okay if I share it? And will you hop on a call so I can tell you what I see? And he said, absolutely. And we get on a call together. And I was super nervous because, again, it usually brings up some nerves in me to call something out like this. And I said to him, hey, here's what I see. I see you shopping around. I see you talking to a number of different coaches. And here's the danger with that. And I laid everything out. And when I was done talking, he said, wow, thanks a lot for sharing that. He said, Gary's actually the only other coach I've ever reached out to besides you, and it was just one time. So everything you've said really isn't what I'm doing, but thank you for warning me. And it was embarrassing because I'd gone in like strong, and here's what's going to happen to you, and if you're dating around, had all this stuff I was sharing, and it turns out he'd sent one message one time to one person, and was in no way doing what I thought he was doing. And so I came in and shared all of this and shared what I saw happening, and turns out he was not in any risk of doing that at all.
So what's your takeaway with that? Because I think a lot of people would go through that experience and go, oh, I need to hold back in the future.
Right. My takeaway is that part of this radical honesty, before I go in to say something like this, I have to let go of any outcome that I might want. So I might want to go into this conversation and have the other person affirm that how right I am. Dave, you're so right. Like, that's exactly what I was doing. Like, I could want that, or I could want them to see me as powerful and thank me. And so I have to make sure I'm clean on all that before I go in. So because of that, I was able to hear what he said and say, great, I'm so glad that isn't going on for you. I'm so happy and I'm glad we talked about this now, in case that was something in the future. Like, I still get to own that if he had been doing what he did, that could have been a problem for him, and could have held him back. And the fact that he wasn't, and I was still willing to share it, is at least a good example for him of what it looks like for a coach to show up in this way. And so there's no way I lose. And in fact, he did ask for a proposal at the end of that conversation. I didn't give it because the container wasn't right for it, but it didn't even screw me in terms of working with this guy. It didn't turn him away from wanting to work with me, which blew my mind. I thought, me coming in being this wrong, why would someone want to work with you afterwards? And that wasn't the effect it had. But again, my commitment to being it, and when I'm right, and the effect it has when I'm right, is so profound that it's worth being wrong to go through it. because when I say something and it ends up being the thing, the way the client's world shifts and the way it opens up and what they're able to do from that is so good. It's why we coach. I'm happy to be wrong 9 times out of 10 if I get that one time where I nail it.
Yeah, I think I love that. And one of the things I've learned, because I've had my moments of those embarrassing moments where you go down a road and like the client's like, no, that's totally not what's going on, and here's 10 reasons why. And what I've learned with that, like you say, is that willingness to be wrong. And often I'll even say to clients, like, I might be way off base here.
Yes.
And I'm going to say it anyway.
Yeah.
Because if I'm not, and it's amazing how many times, even when I can be slightly off base, but someone will say, well, actually, that's not right, but there's something in that.
Yes, that's it. Yep. It's so big.
Mm.
Why would I withhold that from someone? Because if I bring it up and it's not the right thing, we now know where not to go. Like, to me, that's just as valuable as getting it right. It's only my ego that wants to be able to say something and have the other person say, God, you're so smart. Like, that's my ego wants that big time. And my willingness to show up and not have that allows me to actually do some really good work that other people can't do, who are too stuck. I have clients that are so stuck. One guy I'm trying to teach this to, he's so tied to being right before he'll bring anything up that if when he does bring it up, it's usually pretty solid, but it takes him longer. And sometimes he can't collect enough information to be 100% sure, so he doesn't say the thing. And I just can only imagine what his clients aren't hearing from him that if they did would be so profound for what they're up to. And so I'm not going to take that away from my client. I'm willing. Gary and I were talking about me being willing to fall on my sword and how important that is for me to be willing to be the embarrassed one or be the one that's wrong or be the one that totally missed the mark. Like, that's a big service I bring to people, is willingness to do that. But it's not easy.
Yeah, I want to open this up to questions, and I'll keep asking you stuff because you and I can talk all evening, but I want to make sure that other people have an opportunity to ask. You know, Stuart said that letting go of the outcome is a powerful way to approach coaching conversations as well as anything else. And that's a really good point. It shows a way to not go. I think it also allows you as a coach to open the space within yourself for more to come. I find that if I hold back, then I hold on to that and I miss so much.
Totally. I couldn't agree more. It's perfect.
So if you've got any questions for David or myself around the topic or anything around radical honesty, how that applies to coaching, how it applies to 3 principles, then please ask in the comments blocks below, and I'll read it out, and we'll try and get around to it. I say this every time. We get very few questions at the beginning, and then 5 minutes to go, we'll get 3 questions. So please, if you've got a question, don't be shy. You know, this is an opportunity to ask now and for us to discuss it. So please do that. Just type it below, and we'll get to it. One of the things that occurred for me, David, in the last year, and I'm really curious about whether this happened for you, is I started off, 4 years ago, really looking at being more honest, being more direct with my clients, which I've learned, and I'm, like you say, you're always learning. But about a year ago, I saw the power of radical honesty with myself. Right. And I wanted to cover this a little bit with you tonight as well, where one of the things that I say, I'm sure other people say, like yourself and Gary, is that for coaches to really do well, just how important it is to have a coach, right? Yeah. And to experience what it is that you're selling. It's like a dentist who doesn't trust dentists, or a doctor who doesn't trust doctors, or we can go on and on and on. And what's had me get more out of my coaching relationship with my coach is a willingness to bring that same radical honesty that I bring, with my clients to myself. Yeah. And you're, like I said, you're very good at doing this online, and you're kind of telling yourself, and right. you'll share your embarrassing stories, and it's very, very funny. If you don't follow David online, do follow him. He's just for a bit of hilarity during your day, right? Right. But there's that willingness to bring to your coach, this is what's going on. And I was coaching someone once who I was coaching for many, many months, and he was struggling a bit, and we were talking and talking and talking, and he was just not, something wasn't clicking. And then 6 months into the coaching, he brought a personal story,
Yes.
and I was like, oh, this is what's really going on.
Yes.
And which was fine, because then we dealt with that. But and it's normal, because I would hold things back from my coach, but now I try and bring it in as quickly as possible. Like, here's where I'm getting annoyed, here's where I'm really not seeing things clearly, here's where I'm holding back, here's what I don't want you to know about me, with my own coach, in order to get more out of that relationship.
Yeah.
Have you found the same?
Yeah, no, it's funny to me, what's come up for me most recently is the thing where I try to show up that way, and how much I hide from myself. How much of what's going on in me isn't even available to me, and the deeper I go with my own coaching, the more I look at it, the more I can catch those little, it's almost like little grains of sand left over. We've moved the big rocks out of the way in the coaching in terms of the limiting beliefs and the self-view and all of that stuff, and I've really put a lot of energy and effort into doing that, and now it's the little tiny things that are so subtle, I don't see them naturally. And so sometimes my coach helps bring them out. So there's a willingness in me to have things called out of me that I maybe don't even see right now. There's a willingness there needs to be a willingness for me to show up ready for that. And also in honesty, in terms of if they see something in me and it's not true, like we were just talking about doing with clients, if that happens with my coach, to say that's not really it. It's not it, which just allows us to explore even deeper what is going on or what might be seen. But no, my willingness to show up and be super honest with my coach just allows him to be so much more effective with me. I describe it to clients sometimes as imagine you're going to the doctor and saying, "Doctor, it hurts," but you won't tell the doctor where it hurts. Or you refuse to share where, just make it better. And I accidentally do that sometimes. I just don't know myself well enough to always bring what I need to. So sometimes it'll take 2 or 3 sessions and I do 90-minute sessions. So we'll be at 4.5 hours of work when finally that thing will come out that we've kind of been digging around for and uncovering. And I'm trying to just be so open, but there's times when I have to say, Gary, I know you can see something. I can't find it. I can't find it in me. I trust that it's there, but I just can't see it. And so we just keep showing up open and honest over and over again until it'll come up to the surface enough to where I can be aware of it and bring it into the coaching conversation. We just had one last night. In fact, Gary and I were talking. I have a large corporate client asked for a proposal to do work with a team, which I haven't done with this client before. And I was really struggling with the proposal, and I couldn't figure out why I was struggling with it. And Gary and I got on a call, and I said, I don't know why I'm stuck. And then Gary saw it. He said, you're so focused on pleasing this client and getting them to hire you because it's going to be good money that you're not saying the things that need to be said. And I went, that's exactly it. It was exactly it. Like, I knew what the program needed to look like, but it's bigger time commitment than this client has told me they have available. And so therefore I was trying to make my program fit their time to get them to say yes. What I wasn't seeing was that I was doing that. And that's why I was getting hung up. And so when Gary pointed it out to me, now I can show up and actually bring the honesty of, this is the program you need. And if you guys aren't willing to commit to this, then let's just not do it. Like, that's what I wasn't seeing. So he saw it in me, and now I can bring it to the client. But otherwise, I'd be sitting here today still frustrated and stuck on how to do this proposal because I had no idea why I couldn't get the words out and couldn't get it together.
That's a great example. Stuart's got a question. The only thing that I would love to hear more on is more about having nothing on the outcome. Does this come with practice?
Right. So there's 3 pieces that I believe to this radical honesty piece, or using it. One is no attachment to the outcome. The other one is coming from full love. Like, I can only say these things from love. I can't say them with anything else in my mind or any hope for anything else. So I make sure I'm coming from just a ton of love for that client before I share whatever it is I'm going to share. And the last piece is no judgment. So before I'm going to go on and be honest with somebody, if I know there's something I need to say before a call, I'll actually sit and check with myself. Am I judging this person in some way? Am I judging myself in some way around this topic? Like, I've lived this, therefore I can't say it to them. I haven't fixed this in my own life, therefore who am I to call it out on somebody else? Like, I look for any judgments. I make sure I'm coming from love, and then I detach from outcome. And the way that I've done that, and it takes a ton of practice, is really just to look ahead of time. Is there something I'm hoping this person says or does based on what I share with them? Am I hoping that if I share what I see, that they'll confirm that I'm right? Am I hoping that they'll appreciate it? Am I hoping they build me up? Like, what am I hoping for comes out of this? Am I hoping they'll sign on as a client? This guy that I thought was calling multiple coaches, I really had to look at that because he was on my list of people I thought I could work with. So before I could say this to him, I had to make sure that I wasn't hoping for that specific outcome before I shared it. And once I'm clean on all that, then I can come through and say the thing. And it often falls apart. Like, I'm still not good at being that strong and then holding the container to see the client through to the other side. That is my area where I'm still practicing. Because I'll sometimes bring something up and the client's like, yeah, that's real. Thanks a lot. And then I don't know where to go from there. And I don't know what else to do. And so I'm still working on how do I stay in that space and kind of help them walk through whatever comes along with that truth that I've delivered. So it's a ton of practice. I still practice before the call. And if something comes up in the call, I'll take a minute. The client usually doesn't even know, but I kind of go inside real quick and say, is this thing I'm going to say, does it fit the criteria for me being super honest with them? And if yes, then I'll come through and say it. But there's a lot of checking in on myself with this work to make sure I'm doing it right.
Yeah, and I love that. I sometimes have a thing, if I'm in a coaching conversation and a thought pops up and it sounds a bit edgy or direct, I'll leave it and then I'll carry on talking, and sometimes it just goes.
Yeah.
And there'll be some conversations where, like, a few minutes later it pops up and I'm like, I'm not sure, and I leave it, and then when it pops up for the third time, then that's it. Right, okay.
Yep. Yeah, we got to say this.
Yeah.
That's exactly. But lots of practice, and I'm still practicing. It's brand new. It's so powerful that I was willing to come out and talk about it today. But this is a topic where, if it was anything else, I probably would have picked something different, because I wouldn't want to go on a webinar like this and start speaking to something that I don't feel I have total mastery of. And this is an area where it's so deep and I have so far to go with it that I'm far from mastery, but it's also so strong and so good that I thought this is the thing to talk about. This is the most powerful thing I've come across in my practice that's had this impact.
Yeah, Stuart, let us know if that was helpful. Let us know if you want us to talk more about that. And if you've got any follow-up questions, feel free to ask it, and for anyone else. I was going to ask you, David, what do you do to set up a container to be so honest? So we had Karen Davis on a few weeks ago, and she really, works with agreements with clients where she makes it really clear this is how we're going to work. And so how important is to have permission with a client and set that space for radical honesty?
I think it starts right from the beginning. I think the minute you start talking to someone, whether they know it or not, they're kind of feeling out, are you a safe person? Are you somebody that I can trust? Are you somebody who's going to treat me like everyone else in my life has? Because the coaching relationship, in my experience, is so different from any other relationship somebody's had. So it's my job from the outset to start laying the foundation to be able to come in with these strong revelations or this strong honesty. And so the container I set really is one of zero judgment, 100% love for the other person, where I'm just here for them. It's a one-way conversation. It is only me focused on them. I work real hard to not have the conversation become about me, either internally or within the dialogue between us. So me setting that intention, and then another piece of it that's so important I found is being super clear on who's the leader here. So am I leading this conversation, or am I allowing the client to lead the conversation? And if I'm leading it, I have to step into that leadership and I have to hold it for the entire time that we're on the phone. And me doing that, I think, really creates a container where the client feels safe, they feel held, and they feel that they can trust me to take us where we need to go. But all of that is done behind the scenes before I even hop on the call. So I have all of that set. That's kind of to make me show up the right way. And then the last little piece I have is I'm constantly asking permission to say or ask anything. So I see something here. Is it okay if I share what I see? I'm hearing something you said that I think might have an impact. Is it okay if I share what I hear? I'm seeing something going on. Is it okay to share what I see happening in your life and why I think this might be happening? Like, I'm constantly asking. So I ask, I deliver, and if there's more, then I ask again, to the point where I have clients that I think are kind of tired of me, like, yeah, go ahead, but I'm not ever going to assume I have permission to say something. And I think even if I've got one guy we've been working together for probably 3 years now, and we've gone super deep. We've gone so far in his business, and I still ask him permission before I share anything, even though we have such an established track record of trust and honesty between the two of us. I think me just asking that question and the client needing to say yes, like I don't say it until they agree. So I've heard before recorded conversations where a coach will say, is it okay if I share something? Because what I'm seeing is, and then they kind of roll right into it. I don't roll into it until I get the verbal back. Yes, please share what you're seeing. Because no matter how long we've worked together, I feel like them saying that they are that act in and of itself is them opening up to be able to receive whatever it is that I bring. So I think in the conversation, that's such an important piece for me.
I 100% agree. There is an audio in this group. If people scroll down, if you just type in Steve Hardison, there is a recording of Steve Hardison being interviewed by Ayanna Van Zandt for her radio show. Yeah. And I'd heard this about asking permission, and I got it intellectually, but hearing Steve, because Steve's a master at it, hearing Steve Hardison ask for permission was so clear, so direct, that after listening to that, and it's a great audio for a bunch of other reasons, but listening to that completely changed the way that I coached.
Yes.
Because it is, and I agree with you, Steve's been my coach now. We're in our 6th year of coaching, and he still asks me for permission. Yeah. And you're right, I find that with my clients, and I had a client who just said, stop asking me for permission, I'm giving you blanket permission, and I stopped, and he stopped being so open. And he started, and I just said, I'm not doing this, Yeah.
Good.
It's exactly really important.
Yeah, and that interview is amazing. I remember that was assigned to me pretty recently to listen to that from my coach, and I just heard it, hearing Steve Hardison talk about it in that way. I went, wow, that's exactly it. It's so good to hear again. Such a great reminder.
So Stuart said this is that's really helpful. It's our previous conversation topic. The reminder of coming from love and checking where the message comes from, ego or love, etc., is really good and timely. Also, thinking ahead of time or taking a minute to check in on the call is really good. Many thanks.
Cool. Good.
So thanks for that. And again, if you've got any more questions, just keep posting them below. We'll get through as many as we can, during this time.
Yeah.
Coming back to radical honesty, because again, people have gone quiet. We're gonna get a bunch of questions. 10 minutes to go, as always happens. And I had something earlier on, and it's just completely slipped my mind. I was like, need to ask David this, as is always the case. Yeah. In terms of when radical honesty goes wrong, let me ask you this, right? Yeah. How do we know whether we're coming from ego or whether we're coming from love?
Gosh, that's a tough one. I still question that. I sometimes will write my coach when I see something that I want to bring up with a client, and I'll write him and I'll say, is this strong coaching or am I just being an asshole? Like, because sometimes I know for me, there's times when I love the idea of being a powerful coach, and that's really attractive. And so I try to, I describe it as like putting on my dad's suit when I was a kid and like walking around like I'm the businessman instead of him. Like there's times when I feel like I'm putting the clothes on, but I'm not really owning it. And I think it goes back to, that's one of the reasons we all need someone to coach us, because what I use my coach for is when I feel something strongly, but I'm not totally sure if where I'm coming from with it, I run it by him. And I say, here's what I'm seeing. Here's what I'd like to say. what do you think? And sometimes he comes back and he's like, send it or say it, get him on the call and say it. And other times he goes, well, what would be more powerful than that, or what's below that? And usually that means that my ego has kind of tiptoed in and is starting to prune back, what I would say, and trying to mold it to fit a certain look and feel. And so I'm wanting to be liked, or there's a lot of fear in me, honestly. Kush, you and I have talked about this. Like, I am divorced. I have a huge child support and spousal support payment every month, plus living my own life and trying to grow this business. Like, I need to make a substantial amount of money every month to hit my numbers and hit my budget. And when that's maybe falling short, and this next person saying yes would take care of me for the month or really set me up well, it can be really tricky for me to come in and be as honest as I need to be, because there's a very real risk that the person won't like what I'm saying, won't agree with it. It'll be too strong, too early, and they'll walk away, and I won't have that client. And so I'm constantly needing to check in on that and make sure. And even with all of that, like I said, it still goes sideways. I had a call with a guy who he was a custom home builder, and good client, good guy, and would come to me only in crisis for like these quick calls where he'd come to me in crisis, and I'm really good at sales and marketing, so I'd help him with that, like land that next client or overcome the thing, and they'd go away. And I just realized, man, this guy's never actually going to make sustainable progress in his business if he doesn't come and coach with me. And the fact that he's just like kicking my tires every once in a while, and he'd ask for a proposal and then never return my call or never get back to me on it. And it was funny because a lot of his clients were doing that exact same thing to him, coming to him for bids on their homes, going through the whole process, then taking all the work he had done and taking it to a cheaper builder and hiring that person to actually finish the project. And so I went, oh my God, he's creating in his own life the exact thing that he's creating with me, and I'm allowing this to happen. I can't keep doing that. And so I reached out and I said, can we have a call? I saw something in our last conversation that I think is affecting your business. And I came in and I told him everything I just said to you about how he's creating it with me and I'm allowing it. I apologized for that, how his clients are creating that. And that he needs to work with me. I said, you got to work with me on this. We need to put 6 months together of us just doing this. And he goes, okay, perfect. He said, is that all you had to share? And I went, yeah, I think that's it. And he goes, wow, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. And I haven't heard from him since. And it's been like 4 months since that conversation. Yeah. And what I see there is I can't pinpoint what it was, but there was something I brought into that conversation that wasn't in alignment with what I laid out earlier. Either I wasn't coming from love, I had judgment, or I think what it was is I really was tied to an outcome of this person saying yes to my last proposal. And because of that, when he didn't have a big reaction, I didn't know where to go, and I kind of fell apart on the whole thing. I wasn't able to hold that. So what that tells me is, number one, I need more practice at it, and number two, I came in with something I didn't know I was carrying that really disrupted that conversation. So that was me trying to play the role, but not really owning it.
There's so much in that, because I can so see that with myself, how a few years ago I was selling an apprenticeship program and no one would sign up for it, but
right.
I wasn't aligned to it. I hadn't done what I was selling. And I see this with so many coaches who don't have a coach, haven't paid for coaching, and they're trying to sell something that they don't see value in themselves, and there's no surprise when it doesn't, when no one's buying it. And that shifted for me as I've kind of increased, my expenditure and seen the benefit, with my coach and this thing I did with Keith Blevins this year. That's changed something internally because I really see it. And I see the benefit. So when I'm selling that to people, I'm not selling something that I don't believe in. Yeah. That's powerful.
Nailed it.
Jessie Lynn's got a question. Can you touch on radical honesty and the 3 Ps? I don't have a specific question, but she's enjoying the conversation. Do you want me to take that, or is that you?
Sure, you take it. Yeah, and if I hear anything, I'm happy to contribute.
Because I know you've kind of dipped your toe into 3P a little bit.
Yeah.
What I see with this is that, to me, the principles, in essence, if I boil it down, is right. Life is generated inside out. We're creating our experience of reality from the inside out via our mind, thought, and consciousness. Right. Or the shorthand is you're feeling, you're thinking, and not the circumstances. So what what that looks like to me is when I'm with a client and I see something and I don't say it because I have this thought, oh no, if I say this, he or she isn't going to like me, he or she is going to be upset. I'm seeing what the 3Ps helps me with is that's just thinking.
Yeah.
And I don't need to take it seriously. And also I don't need to take seriously the thought where I'm being radically honest. I can hold it lightly, like, hey, I might be way off base here, but I see this here, and again not have any attachment to it because it's also thinking. And so there's a whole lightness around this radical honesty, because I remember years ago in 2014 I met Rich Litvin for the first time, and I saw him as this like real radical honest guy, and I was like, shit, I have to be like that. Yeah. And to me what it's evolved in for me is, and maybe it's a style thing, but I feel like from a 3P perspective it can be a lot lighter than that. It can be really, really honest, but without this like, I'm a high flame powerful coach and you will, you know, because that's all the ego involved. Yeah.
I see it, I think, in the same way. I think this aligns with 3Ps, because I've you're right, I have looked at it. I've done workshops based with a foundation of that. Really what I look at is the way we view the world. If I see the world being a certain way, I will then align my actions with those beliefs, and then I will elicit the result that then confirms how I view the world. So quick, easy example in my coaching is I coach business owners. I coach people on money, on enrollment for all sorts of different industries, getting clients. If their view is, this is difficult, it's hard to do. This coffee mug I have right here retails for $100. It's made by one of my clients. They invented this cool mug, but they couldn't sell it because in their mind, their worldview was that a $100 coffee mug is too expensive and no one will buy it. And so then they'd get on these phone calls with potential vendors and coffee shops and stuff, and they just kept hearing no, because they would show up in a way to reinforce that. So my radical honesty is calling out that worldview for them. So getting these guys on the phone and saying, can I share why this isn't working? And they say, yes. Well, you think your mug is too expensive. You think nobody's going to want to buy it. So therefore, every single phone call you have, you're setting the client up to give you back exactly what fits your view of the world. Now I've got to check. I do a program with them where I split commission with these guys. So when they sell, I make money, which is one of my favorite ways to work with these salespeople. We had one guy in the organization who didn't have that view. His worldview was not that he had too expensive of a mug. He loves this mug, and he was so excited to sell it. And he started selling them like crazy because his view was different. So I used the radical honesty to help my client see their own worldview in a way that takes it from being just this is how the world is to this is how I see the world. It's a very different way. If I can understand that the way I'm seeing something is not necessarily the absolute reality of it, now I'm free to shift it. And so when I come in and I'm honest with somebody, a lot of the times that's what I'm trying to do, is shift part of how they're viewing the world, so that they can once that shifts, they'll take different actions, get different results, and usually better results than they've had before.
I love that. I love it. And you're right. Jesse Lynn, we could spend this whole hour just talking about how honesty relates to 3Ps, but I know we're limited. And I love what you just said, David. You know, I remember I was talking to a client who was complaining about his wife, and he said, but you don't understand, when she does this makes me feel this way. And what was really useful is, in my mind, I thought, God, if I was in a relationship with someone like that, I would feel exactly like he would. Right. And then I checked in with, well, how does 3Ps apply to that? And what I saw was, no matter what his wife did, that had zero relationship to how he felt. And so radical honesty is knowing that. For me, how this applies is knowing that and being able to go back to the client and say, what if that's not true? Yeah. And the client's going, did you not hear what I just said? And I went, absolutely I did. And what if that's not true? Yeah. Right? Yeah. So I think, and I remember like with Steve, talking to Steve, like to me, the 3Ps is almost like a cheat code for life. Yeah. Because we can see through these circumstances and situations and point something out where the client's really got a blind spot.
Yes, absolutely. It's our willingness, and it may be that I call it out and my blind spot's wrong. So it all comes back to the love, no judgment, lack of a need for an outcome. Yeah, you can apply it everywhere, but worldview is a big way that I use it.
So final question, and this one is from Otto. Hey Otto, how about the difference between radical honesty with yourself and beating yourself up? When do you know when you're really coming from truth and something you're making up based on doubts or insecurities in the moment?
You want me to try? Or do you have a thought?
Yeah, well, I've got a thought, but I'm interviewing you, so if you want me to go first, it's whatever you like.
I'll share what just comes up for me when he's saying that is that if I'm doing this from the place that I want to do it from, I can't come from pure love for myself and make myself wrong. I can't come from no judgment of myself and beat myself up. Like, for me to feel bad or beat myself up for something, I have to have judgment, and I have to be taking myself out of a position of just pure love for me, and I have to have something else going on there. So if I'm really approaching this how we've been talking about, then I don't have those negative feelings. It is simply like me reporting the weather. It's not, there's nothing else tied to it. It's just, this is what I see going on for you, Dave. Like, I see you not making the income you want to make this month because you've chosen not to take the scary actions you want to take. There's not a judgment of like, you're not good enough, you should change it. It's simply a statement of fact. It's just me being super honest. And then I get to do with it whatever I want. If I choose to use it to beat myself up, then I'm not coming from love when I even saw that in myself. So I'm already out of alignment.
Yeah, I love that. And I love what you said earlier on about taking things to your coach. Right. And so for me, Otto, what I would say is that sometimes I do fall in personally into beating myself up. I judge myself. I'm human, right? We all are.
Yeah.
And the beauty of a really great coaching conversation and a coaching relationship, which I know kind of, David, you've got with Gary, I know you've worked with Steve before that and other coaches, is being able to take something like that where it is loaded sometimes. You're like, this has happened and I feel really bad about it. And I know intellectually, it's just data and weather, but right now it's there's something on it. And being able to have, like, again, this is the difference to me with coaching or talking to your partner or your friend, because a partner's job is different. A partner's job is like, maybe, hey, don't worry about it, and give you a hug, or well, I know that, you need to pull your socks up, and both of those might not be helpful with a friend. Just they're there, mate, let's get another beer, or it'll work out, versus a coach who's skilled in kind of peeling that back and saying, with radical honesty, not sugarcoating something, but saying it in a way that you can hear it. And I'll tell it, if you indulge me, a very quick story. So I went for dinner. I went for dinner about 6 months ago with my coach, and my wife joined me, and my coach's wife joined him. And so it's me, Steve, Yamini, and Kathy. And so we're at dinner. We're at the Ritz in London, a very nice place. And basically, there was a lot of conversation between the ladies, right? And it was so great for me to hear Steve's wife talk about Steve as a client. And, my wife and Kathy are kind of talking, and they're talking about, like, I don't understand why, like, Kush will talk to Steve, and he'll say, I had this insight and whatever. And I've been telling him that for ages. And then and then Kathy comes along and went, I know. Like, he would go and talk to Hardison, and why don't you pay me 150,000? I'll tell you that, right? And then me and Steve are just looking at each other like, whose idea was this to bring our wives to this conversation, right? But it was great as well, because to me, what it showed was the difference, right? There is a difference, and to be fair, it's like, it's helped me be more open to my wife, because she has got a point, and our partners do. It's not like there's nothing there for us to listen to. So there's that element, and there's this element of, there's a skill in coaching, and I really see working with Steve that he's so, I'm in so admiration of the guy, because I can be slippery, like we all can when we've got our blind spots, and being able to share something very honestly. And Steve and I were talking about this recently, where he said something to me and I was like, you never said that a year ago, right? And he said, yeah, because if I'd said it to you a year ago, you wouldn't have listened to it. And I went, yeah, you're really right. I would have totally not listened to you. Yeah. And it's that skill set between learning, how far to go, how much to push it in a way that your client can hear it.
You nailed it. I've seen people take this and try and bring it out too early. I've tried, and it can really make relationships harder. Same as holding it back for too long. You're spot on. Absolutely. And I don't know that's something I'm working on how to teach and how to get through, because it's been a learning process for me, and so much of it's intuition. Yeah, it's a tough one.
And I've seen you do it. I think maybe you've seen me do it. This is maybe to wrap this conversation up. This is, and I think this is where we started. This is not a place to get to. This is very much, a journey with yourself, with your clients, with the skill set of coaching, bringing this to your coach.
Yep. You're right. I think just practicing. We had that question earlier. Just being committed and being willing. I think Emma Holmes is one of Gary's clients. She's an amazing coach out of the UK, actually. And she had shared with me something she came up with just recently on a call with Gary, which was, I will succeed because I am willing. And I really feel like that applies here. Like I will succeed in bringing this into my practice and having it be powerful because I am willing to go through whatever it takes to be good and powerful with this tool or this way of being, with this level of honesty. But that's what it takes to be good at it. Is I just have to be willing to keep showing up with it and be wrong and mess it up and have it be uncomfortable and messy and weird, and willing to go do it again and do it again. That's what will let me succeed at it long term and make me a really strong coach.
Absolutely. I love this. We are exactly at 6:00 in the UK. I think that's 10 a.m. where you are. Yep. Thank you for joining us first thing in the morning. Yeah. And having this conversation with us. I really, really, really appreciate it. And keep doing your thing, and like people do check out David. You've got a book out, Selling from the Top of the Ladder, I believe. Right.
I think it's still out. I don't know if a copy's been sold in the last couple of years, but it does exist.
Do David a favor and buy a copy of his book.
No, I don't get any money from it. Just go read it if you want it. Go watch my Facebook and laugh. That'd be great.
Yeah. do add. And what's the best way for people to get hold of you, David, if they want to?
Facebook, probably. Facebook Messenger. I don't even touch my business page, but just find my personal page and
well, you're in the group, so I've tagged you in it, so you can reach out. And if anybody wants to contact me, you can do it in the group or send me an email or whatever. I hope this has been really helpful for everyone. I hope you've enjoyed it. If we haven't answered your questions, feel free to reach out to David or myself privately, and we'll try and do that. But thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Kush.